Too big to fail is a policy not bound to the US. Companies take massive risks on financial markets, knowing specifically that when times are tough, the governments will be there to make sure everything is okay. In China, it appears that despite unprecedented risk-taking, the Chinese government has prepared to bail out those who were involved in further inflating this bubble. Those who denied the fragility of this financial system doubled down and poured their hard-earned savings into and purport that they have entered into a no-lose situation are beginning to realize the truth. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, among so many things that I want to cover, we're going to talk about China bailing out investors. So this is a huge deal as far as I'm concerned because it shows you that this too big to fail policy, it's going on everywhere. It's going on in Europe, and we've seen it, of course, in the US and other places. Let's begin with this article right here. A plan by Shanghai's government to encourage innovation by compensating venture capital firms for their loss has been criticized by professional investors as violating market principles and filled with loopholes. Now think about this for a second. You can go ahead and invest. Of course, that's a select few institutions or individuals, however you want to look at this. You can go out there and bet on any stock you want. And if you lose, they're going to be there to pay you back. It's a policy filled with moral hazard. This is insane. Starting next month, venture capital firms that invested in high-tech startups in Shanghai since the beginning of last year can apply for government compensation if their investment loses money. It's genius. It's insurance, and you didn't even have to pay for it. This is a brilliant policy that's going to cause so much dislocations and distortions within the market. Why not just throw out everything you have into this, knowing that the government is going to pay you back if it loses? It's a genius policy that this way the government doesn't have to directly buy shares of the stock market. They can get other people to do that, and if they end up losing, they just pour some money on it, and that's it. The policy is laid out in a regulation dated December 29th, and it goes on to say some other things. Further down, they're criticizing it. Of course, the idea will have a disastrous impact on the principles of the capital market. And I totally agree with that. You can't get away with this. It's ridiculous. But of course, this is the new world that we live in. Let's move into this here. As you look at, obviously, the situation with Saudi Arabia being a major oil producer for the world, and we have oil subdued at this time. Saudi Arabia faces years of tough austerity as the worst oil price crash in the modern history forces the kingdom to make radical cuts to government largesse, the International Monetary Fund has warned. The IMF is definitely one of those institutions that says a lot of good things, but their solutions a lot of times are definitely not very good. But I like what they have to say, at least on the surface level. They do point out where there are problems. The world's largest producer of crude oil will need to, quote, transform its economy away from oil revenues, which make up more than 80% of the government's wealth. If it's making up 80% and you have oil at this price right now today, the issues that they're facing are not going to be cured in a short order. It's just not going to happen. They can't turn it around in such a short period of time. I understand that they're trying to diversify, but at this time, not looking good. I have a feeling that the oil price can change faster than they can get their economy to change. We'll see what happens here. They're unveiling the largest program of government austerity in decades, as oil prices have collapsed by more than 70% in 18 months. Huge drop in the price, obviously going to affect them. I believe that, I did talk about this before. It's if you go to my main YouTube channel page, the Money GPS, and you see the videos that are there. I believe I have one on the Saudi government and, their involvement in this, or let's just say possible involvement. To give you the short story, I do believe that they are definitely in on this right here. I don't believe that any of the big countries are necessarily going to not have a hand in what happens. This is far too important. This is interesting here. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York officials secretly conducted real-time exercises during the 2011 and 2013 debt limit crisis, which has happened hundreds of times, that demonstrated the federal government could function during a temporary shutdown by prioritizing spending, even as the Treasury Secretary claimed many times such efforts were unworkable. Very interesting to note. I do cover it here on this program, but we do see constantly debt crisis. Oh, we have to hurry up. We have to make a deal. We're going to shut down the government. This is going to be a big problem. Hurry up. Let's make a deal. Don't read it. Don't read what's in the deal. Of course, there's always a few things that are snuck in the deal which have absolutely nothing to do with the debt limit. They sneak in some firearms related things and everything. It's a joke to see it all happen. But of course, they make it 10,000 pages so nobody has a chance to read it. Interesting the way they do this. It's all very criminal. And without me going off on a tangent, I'll leave you with that. Let's move on. This is from my book where I've talked about things, the criminality in which they have been, let's call it, invested in this time frame. We've seen post-crisis. All I'm talking about here is the fact that the Federal Reserve did, in fact, in the first audit of the Federal Reserve, did in fact print $16 trillion. That's 16 trillion with a T, trillion dollars, loaned it out to places all over the world, including South Korea and Scotland, basically everywhere around the world. Now, when they ask about it, they say, well, we're not going to tell you where we gave the money to. So we don't know exactly until this audit came out and found exactly which institutions. Now, I mentioned here on this program that they gave money to Canadian banks. I did a video specifically showing you the Bloomberg article, which had the Freedom of Information Act request that broke it all down. And still, people were not believing it. No. The Canadian banks did not get a bailout from the Federal Reserve. That's what I had to deal with. It's sad. It's really sad to see people in such denial. This is quite interesting as we see Walmart closures leaving small towns, quote, broken. So the trend previously, let's say over the last couple decades, would be that Walmart moves into a town and displaces all of the mom and pop shops. Detrimental to the economy, obviously. But that did, in a way, provide some jobs. People tend to work in those jobs, and that was pretty much the only place that a lot of these people could find work. Would be at a Walmart, or they'd be unemployed, or they have to move out of the city. There was many things that did occur because of this sort of Walmart takeover. But at the bottom it says here, in this city of North Carolina, some residents say they are feeling cheated by Walmart. And what they're saying is, look, you moved in, displaced all of these jobs, and now you're closing down, and all these people are now left out of work. They don't have places to buy what they need to. It's basically a broken city. And this is just one example of many. But what's happening in this, I believe, in part, has to do with the economy itself. The economy can support a place like this, perhaps, and there are different reasons why this is going on. I would have thought personally that they would have stayed open because of the fact that they offer discount pricing and people need to buy things. They need to buy basic essentials. But I do understand that times have really changed. Let's move on to this here. Many NYC students so tech-oriented, they can't even sign their own names. Times have certainly changed here, and I do believe that this is very frightening. When a child is born and they're basically born with an iPad in their hand, this is good, this is bad. They seem to not be able to sign their own name. I gotta say, that is not looking bright for the future. Sure, they can do things that their counterparts born decades ago cannot do. They're more skilled in the technology aspects of it, but I feel like that so-called zombie world is happening a little too soon. This article, right out of the Bundesbank, is talking about how much gold has been transferred into their own vaults. And they've brought back from New York, I want to highlight here New York, and as well as Paris, and they're they're bringing back their gold into their own country. And this is just one of many central banks which have done this. And you can see that 366 tons have been brought back in. Very important to note, because to me, this seems like you're losing trust in these various countries where you have stored your gold. And the reason why you put your gold out in a different country is you sort of want to diversify it out. That's one of the reasons anyway. And now they're bringing it back in. Interesting. Perhaps they want to sell off their reserves. I don't necessarily see that happening anytime soon, but that is a potential reason why we need to investigate this further. The world's first robot-run farm will harvest 30,000 heads of lettuce daily. This is not necessarily a competition at this time, but later down the road, as robotics and automation take hold, we do have a very big problem for a lot of the jobs, and farming is one of them. That's all I'm trying to show with this. Now, the last article of the day, just something that I wanted to note, obviously with the Zika virus becoming something that's popular in the news at this time. I'm not ready to do a whole video on it. I'm not ready to give my total opinion on it, but just wanted to bring this article to you just in case you haven't seen it. The Zika virus outbreak currently gripping the Americas could have been sparked by the release of genetically modified mosquitoes in 2012. Once again, I'm not saying that this is happening. I'm just bringing it out to you. You judge for yourself. You do your own research. The insects were engineered by biotechnology experts to combat the spread of dengue fever and other diseases, and released into the general population of Brazil in 2012. We saw what happened here with Bill Gates leading the charge, saying that they're going to genetically modify mosquitoes, send them out, and this is going to save the day. Actually, in a way, being a vaccine to the public. Nobody knows what would happen in that case, but this was not forced, but I think this is definitely a criminal way to do this, because you're not having the people consent to it regardless. But we know that this did happen, and they are saying, the experts are saying, and this is not just the only instance I've seen of this. I've seen multiple avenues, or multiple different outlets, I should say, bringing out this information. We'll keep an eye on it. Perhaps if I can dig up enough info, solid info on that, I want to definitely do a video about it specifically. Some don't like the health-related videos for some unusual reason, but occasionally I definitely want to bring them out, because I know a lot of people are interested in the truth, whatever that is. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, you'll definitely find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. If you want to look through it, head over to Amazon. They have a look inside feature, which allows you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.